Yeah, I knew straight away that I'd broken my back, and the pain was kind of instant. And I remember thinking, like, as I was facing up to the sky, I thought, I think I've just broken my back. And then I thought, oh no, my mum's watching this, so she's not going to deal with this very well. Then landed back on the ground, and then it was just a case of, right, this is how it is. Whatever's going to happen next, whatever comes your way, just deal with it as best you can.
Abbie Eaton, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Currently a little bit out of puff, a little bit tired. I've just come straight from a training session. So a couple of minutes ago, my heart rate was in 180s, I think.
Was that running to the car, or was that from the training session?
Both. Not much time to recover after the training session, but this was a cardio-based session today. So to be honest, I needed it because I just come straight from the airport from a job, so I was feeling a bit sleepy. So I'm awake now, put it that way.
All right, perfect. Podcast preparation, a workout beforehand. So that's really interesting then. So if anyone's watching on YouTube, they can see you in a car. If they're listening on the podcast, then Abbie's just got into a car and we've sort of connected on Zoom. So give me a bit of a clue as to what does a typical day look like for you, if there is a typical day at all, or maybe that variation and the variety that you've got.
Yeah, to be honest, every week can be different. If it's a kind of race week, or in prep for a race weekend, generally wake up, do some cardio, or wake up, eat breakfast, do some cardio, and then it will be a strength session. So we try and do 3 full body strength sessions a week, and then the 2 sessions in between are kind of more HIIT session, cardio based stuff, but we'll always do a little bit of steady state kind of each morning as well, and some simulator work in the afternoon. So generally I might go on it for kind of 2 or 3 hours if it's a new circuit to learn, or just to keep my hand in, or if there's kind of techniques that I need to work on, such as hitting a certain amount of peak brake and your brake release trace, and just trying to kind of fine tune everything before you actually turn up on the weekend and have to work on those things. The more prepared you can be, the better. Flip to the other kind of automotive hat that I wear. I do kind of filming for TV shows, kind of driving for that. TV adverts, music videos, and then the other hat I wear is kind of automotive training. So flying to Spain tomorrow to work with a manufacturer on a new car launch. So yeah, jack of all trades, and hopefully master of some of them as well.
Right, you've just given me 100 different things I could ask you questions about. So so that's fascinating itself. Perhaps before I dive into some of those, could you kind of tell me a little bit about your background, and then sort of lead me into how you got into racing?
Yeah, so I Northern girl, grew up in East Yorkshire. Family are all up there still. I currently live in Milton Keynes now. Got into motorsport how kind of most people really tend to, with a family member. So my dad has always been into motorsport and racing anything that he can. So he started on bikes and then moved to karts and then finally into cars. And I was at racetracks when I was in my mum's tummy. So it was only a matter of time till I pestered for a go myself. Started go-karting when I was 10 years old, and then did that for about 4 years, and then progressed into cars when I was 15. And then I think this is my 21st year now racing. So I think it's my 21st. I don't really want to add them up if it's any more than that. I'm going to stop thinking about it when it gets to 20 years.
21 years. So sorry, maybe it's too rude to ask you how old you are, but how old were you when you started then?
10 years old, so I'm 30 now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So some people play Beethoven to the baby in their tummy, but you heard the drone of race cars going past, did you? So that was the thing that set you off.
Yeah, pretty much, I think. Yeah, it's actually, falling asleep at night, the best place to do it is when you're at a racetrack and you're in a camper van, in a race paddock, and you can hear like generators in the background and race cars in the morning to wake up to. That's proper way to wake up.
Nice, yeah, and a nice little crossover there of white noise enhancing sleep that for
Yeah.
the race. Fantastic. Um, and so been the progression like for you? How's that sort of gone over the years as you've started to sort of that's I presume there's an element of this is a pursuit and a hobby. Now I can start competing, and now competition becomes a bit more serious.
I think probably, when we moved into cars, that's when I really fell in love with it. Karting was fantastic for learning the foundations, and I think, if anyone wants to, or a kid wants to get into motorsport, and a dad or mum want to know how to do it, I think definitely getting into go karts first is the way forwards. And it just teaches you everything you need to know, and then kind of moving into cars. I felt that I belonged there. Karting was great for learning, but I didn't really enjoy it that much because it was a little bit like me and my dad used to call it checkbook racing. Um, you know, Myself was just me and my dad rocking up in an old rusty van, getting the car out the back and kipping down in the back of the van on the night type thing. So, we had secondhand chassis, secondhand engine, just one of each, and you couldn't really compete with those that were in the teams. So that's why we made the jump into cars. And as soon as I did, I remember my first time at Donington Park it was a Citroen Saxo. And I was like, this is awesome. The car's moving around, it's sliding around, and I loved it. And I think probably at that moment there, I thought, actually, this is something that I want to do properly. And, I will concentrate at school, but my heart lies with motorsport. And probably when I got into GTs, that was the first year really that I'd kind of moved away from the family race team, and that's when I thought, actually, I have got the chance at a professional career here. And don't get me wrong, I'm still not a professional level now. I'd class myself as kind of semi-pro in the sense of my main income isn't from being a racing driver. I still want to achieve that goal of being a works driver for a manufacturer. So, I'm still at it, but don't get me wrong, I earn well out of a passion in various different forms that we spoke about earlier.
Could you then give us a bit of a sense of the landscape then? So, is that semi-pro from the point of view that there's still a lack of investment or lack of prize money available, or could you just give us a sense of what the tiers look like and where you're operating at the moment and where you want to get to and so on?
To be a professional driver, your main income is motorsport, and that means you wake up in the morning, you train, you eat, you go on the sim, and your life revolves around being a driver. I'm not in that situation at the moment. I have to, work every single kind of day that's available to make ends meet. And W Series, for example, is a championship that are racing at the moment, and they have a prize fund at the end of it, which is fantastic if you're able to have a good finish during the year and you earn decent money at the end of it, but they don't pay you a wage through the year. So, I've got bills to pay, I've got, a house to pay for and so on. So I still need to earn money during the year. And, for example, right now, my, preference would be to be on, recovering myself and,
Yeah.
not getting 3 hours sleep last night and then going straight from the airport to training and then packing a bag to go to Spain again tomorrow. It's not ideal prep for races that are coming up, and especially not after having the injury that I've had. I'm still not 100%. I'm still building that kind of that fitness back and strength back. So yeah, that's the kind of tough part. It's like semi-pro footballers where they still have to fund certain things and bits and bobs, and it's the stuff that you don't really think about that can actually turn out to be quite expensive. So that's the kind of difference really between a semi-pro and a pro driver.
So, I suppose the comparison there I'm making in my head is something like the sailors, who they're out on the water, they're grafting in all sorts of weather, and then they get back out of the boat and they go home, and they've got to try and find sponsors, and so they've got to try and create the income so that it allows them to do that. Is there a slight difference here where some of those other bits of work you're having to do to create that income, that it's still in the same field, you're still making a crust out of being a driver on the Grand Tour, for example, or specifically representing a motor brand?
Yeah, it's the same. I still sit at home and spend hours, sending out sponsorship proposals and
Right.
chasing opportunities and all that kind of stuff. We, my friends that are also drivers, we laugh and say, motorsport and racing is 95% admin and 5% racing, because you're always looking for opportunities, to create partnerships with new companies and new, people and brands, because ultimately that takes a massive weight off your shoulders if you're not having to worry about, for example, insurance. Paying for insurance is an expensive thing to have as a racing driver, but it's something that is needed. And last year I was caught out a little bit with that. So it's super important to have bits and bobs like that in place and have the right cover in place. And sometimes going to the companies that are actually the ones that have the expertise, they obviously come with a bit of a premium on them as well. So stuff like that is where sponsorship comes into play and just allows you to focus 100% on being a driver. But yeah, that normal thing of paying your mortgage and your rent and your bills and all that.
Yeah. And so have you got anybody that does specific parts for you, or equally, if there are things like your accounts or marketing, those sorts of sponsorship, have you had to learn it yourself, or have you had some training in that area? Because I can imagine that's quite demanding when you're thinking, I don't know how to do this, either bringing expertise in or acquiring that yourself.
I've done all that myself,
Really?
just because I haven't got the money to pay others to do it, and I never have done. I'm from a background where we're not on, as my dad would say, the bones of our ass, Northern saying, but my mum and dad kind of went without a lot to be able to kind of give me the opportunities that I had. And it kind of you have to put the graft in, to get what you want out of it, type thing. And paying someone else to do that would be a massive weight lifted off me, and it would allow me to concentrate on other things. But ultimately, if I haven't got the funds to do that, then I'll do it myself, and I have done for the last 20 years. Certain parts I enjoy. I definitely enjoy certain aspects of it, and learning new things, and putting proposals and stuff together. It's quite a rewarding thing at the end of it when you put it together, a nice kind of proposal piece. But it does take up time. However, when you're on flights quite a lot, that time can be put to use. So
Yeah. Okay. I'm sort of feeling like we need an advert in the middle of this to sort of go, look, if anyone wants to sponsor Abbie, then the link's in the show notes. So there you go. I don't know who's listening, but um, so do you feel the distraction then when you're bouncing from one thing to the next? Do you feel a compromise in maybe the training, recovery, if it's physical or mental, but also perhaps the lack of time for that simulator type training?
yeah, definitely. And I think that's the same for any job, not just motorsport, and not just other sports as well. But yeah, it definitely does have an impact. Ultimately, recovery is super important when you're an athlete. And as I mentioned earlier, when you're coming back from an injury, actually, recovery is probably the most important thing. But ultimately, it's a little bit of a first world problem, isn't it? I'm getting to do the things that I love and that I enjoy, and playing with cars in all forms. It is a passion and always has been. So you get really busy periods, and then you get really quiet periods, and in those quiet periods you think of the busy periods and wish that you're back in that point there. But generally it does kind of balance itself out a little bit. The start of the season is always a little bit manic, and then kind of mid-season there'll be some gaps, and then the end tends to be flat out again, and then you have the off season and you're back at it again. It's a bit of a rat race, I suppose.
Right. Okay. So can I ask you a little bit about your abilities and as you're starting to progress through the ranks, but also in the field that you compete in now, um, what are you good at? What separates you from other drivers?
I think I'm quite adaptable to changes. Because I've come from a background where money hasn't been, you know, everywhere. I've had to kind of have opportunities and been lucky to have opportunities where I can just jump into random cards in random championships and have like a one-off race. So you have to kind of think fast and switch things on quite quickly. So, you know, for example, in the middle of the race, if there's a bit of rain or something like that, generally I can cope with that very well. And I've always been very good at race starts, although my start in Barcelona was horrendous. So we'll get that one done and out the way early, but my first one in Miami was great. So yeah, first laps have always been a bit of a forte of mine. And, you know, I love the buzz of that some people are a little bit tentative, whereas that's when I can really capitalize and really get, you know, some overtakes done on the first lap or so.
So what's that, Abbie? Because that's interesting in that sense of first lap. It's not. I'm presuming that it's not necessarily just your alert, but because there's a lot going on and there's an element of risk taking there, that you're prepared to take slightly greater risks than maybe other people to get to take advantage of that melee that goes on. Am I sort of reading that correctly?
Yeah, I think so. That's definitely part of it, and kind of, you know, trusting that perhaps the tyres are not going to be 100% up to temperature, but, you know, just sending it in and then dealing with what you get from the car. So, you know, whether you have a bit of a slide mid-corner or a bit of a lock-up, it's, you know, pushing the limits to the point where you can get an advantage, but, you know, hopefully you kind of have the boundaries just there that, you know, you don't end up hitting someone or, you know, firing yourself off in the process. But, you know, I think people can almost sometimes play it a little bit too safe. For example, you know, into turn one, it's generally, you know, try and cover the inside so no one can go up the inside. You know, it's more risky to hold around the outside, because then if someone has an incident on the inside, the place that they're going to end up is being, you know, fired to the outside. But, you know, there's a lot to be gained from positioning yourself in the correct place. But equally, you can get caught out. For example, in Barcelona, you know, I put some pretty good moves on people on the first lap, but they were overwhelmed, I think, with the chaos that a first lap gives. And I had to back out of 2 or 3 moves, otherwise I would have ended up in the wall quite hard. So sometimes it bites you, but yeah, I've had some luck with it so far through my career.
And how do you handle that pressure, the pressure of that reading lots of information at the same time, backing your experience, kind of keeping your nerves calm, but also, I suppose, being quite amped for those situations too, sort of dialing it up mentally to the right level, but not too much?
I'm not really sure if there's anything you consciously do. I think it just happens. You're either good at it and you can do it, or you're not. And I probably learned it without realizing, you know, from when I was younger and maybe in karting and so on. But you don't really remember thinking about the first lap. It's just you see, because there's so much information coming at you so quickly, you know, it's a move now type thing. It's everything just kind of has to happen there and then, and you hope that you make the right decision. You know, for example, if someone was stalled on the grid, you hope that you pick the right side where there maybe isn't someone stalled on the other side. So it's all really kind of, you know, instant decisions that you make in the process, which I suppose, you know, reaction games and that kind of stuff, reaction training will help on that bit, I think, for sure.
Okay, so those sorts of reaction games like catching balls and battack type activities to sort of prime yourself in the moment. Do you notice anything deteriorate if you haven't been racing for a while? Is there anything that sort of you feel an ability in the same way that it might be strength or fitness might drop for a period of time? What comes back mentally?
Everything drops when you've not been in
That's it.
car for a while. Absolutely everything. And you know, your sharpness, your kind of, I suppose, exposure to speed as well. I think definitely, you know, after being out for, well, what was it, 5 months with my back, you know, the first time back in an F3 car, I was thinking, God, this actually feels fast, which, you know, you don't have usually. Oh, I don't have usually. But, you know, give it a session in the car and then everything seems all normal again. But yeah, just your perception of kind of a little bit maybe spatial awareness around you, perhaps. I mean, I don't really struggle with that too much, thankfully, although touch wood, I'm probably creating a rod for my own back now at Silverstone. But yeah, reaction time, fitness, definitely, kind of mental concentration, it is something. Heat exposure, it's so hot in these cars abroad. I mean, Miami was too hot. It actually wasn't enjoyable really to drive in that heat. So just exposure to that kind of stuff. So for example, with training that I've just done there, we had the heater on at 30 degrees, and I'm wearing long sleeves, long trousers, just to try and replicate how hard it is in car.
Okay, so you mentioned the crash, and maybe we can come back to that in a moment. But the and you also allude to some of the demands. What sort of, have you got any facts and figures about the different types of pressures you're under, the heart rate that you experience during racing? What are the sort of facts and figures of the demands that you are under?
So my last race in Barcelona, my max heart rate was 180. And my average was, I think it was 150, something like that. And that was for 40 minutes. So I did it kind of just pre and post race, but actually it spanned for, I think it was about an hour and a half that actually my heart rate was elevated to, I think like over 100 and something as an average for that entire time. So you're working hard, and a lot of people probably underestimate how difficult it is to drive a race car, and specifically a single seater. Everything's super physical. The G-forces, the aero and the grip that provides you, and none of these cars have power steering. They don't have any electric help with the brakes, no servo or anything like that. So it is just purely your body that's creating these cars' ability to move, obviously, apart from the engine and so on. But the demands are great, in terms of water intake and dehydration. That you can lose 3 kilos after a race, just purely with sweating it out. And it's a constant battle with keeping topped up with water. But yeah, you do. I mean, yes, say myself. So I've got rehydration stuff in this, and I have probably when I'm not training, on a normal day, I'll still have rehydration stuff as well, because as soon as you dehydrate, you lose your cognitive ability to make decisions good and as accurate and as quickly as if you are properly hydrated.
And so, do you have any benchmarks physically for what you might be able to lift, or aerobically for you to get fit back after you getting back into a season or from recovery?
Some drivers can just deal with it. They don't even step one foot in the gym, and actually they're okay in car. They just grin and bear it, and I think they're superhuman if they're able to do that. And in terms of cardio, again, it's very kind of individual. Some people might have a heart rate of 180 and actually feel quite easy with it. Others might have a lower heart rate but actually struggle quite a lot. So it's more subjective on the sense of, if you drive the car and you think, do you know what, my heart rate's through the roof, I'm out of breath too early, then you need to push harder and build endurance. And that side of things, recovery is very important, and the fitter you can be cardio based, then the easier you'll be to recover and deal with jet lag and all that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, okay. And so we've alluded to sort of recovery, coming back from injury. That's how I found out about you, saw the profile on the BBC site. Tell me a little bit about the crash. What happened?
So it wasn't even really a crash. It was quite an unspectacular, I'd say, incident. Racing at the last round of W Series in Texas, and on that circuit they've got these big kind of sausage curves, which are basically like a speed bump that you'd find on the road, but just way bigger and meaty. And they're kind of set on the edge of the track, and they're in place to prevent people abusing track limits. So some people might run wide and carry another 10 mile an hour through the corner and ultimately get a fast lap time. So they're there to try and make the racing better and fair, but what had happened with myself was I kind of, made a minor mistake, ran wide, probably like, not even a foot. And it basically dragged me onto the sausage curbs, and I hit one of the curves with the top of the car, and it kind of hopped me and then landed me directly on another one, which it basically was like an instant stop. So I kind of jolted forward and fractured two of my vertebrae in my thoracic spine. So not ideal, but I suppose those risks come with motorsport.
And what do you remember about the incident? And did you immediately realise the severity of it?
Yeah, I knew straight away that I'd broken my back. I heard the vertebra crunch. I heard it, crush, and the pain was kind of instant. And I remember thinking, like, as I was facing up to the sky, I thought, I think I've just broken my back. And then I thought, oh no, my mum's watching this, so she's not going to deal with this very well. Then landed back on the ground, and then it was just a case of, right, this is how it is. Whatever's going to happen next, you've got to deal with it, and whatever comes your way, just deal with it as best you can. And thankfully, I kind of stopped. The brake had kind of stopped at 50%. So one of the vertebrae was a 50% crushed fracture, and then the one underneath, basically at the end of it kind of popped off. So generally with those kind of fractures, if it's kind of 50% or more, that's when they become kind of unstable and require surgery. And that's when spinal cord damage can happen. But thankfully I was saved from that, and it was a case of wearing this back brace and neck brace. I had a neck collar on, and kind of a back brace all down my torso, I guess, and was in that for 4 months, so day and night, 24/7.
So you mentioned something there. You just got to get on with it and deal with it. Was that how you responded mentally? Were you able to process that, sat in the car experiencing that pain? Or is that the benefit of hindsight, that you've kind of matured your thoughts and forgotten all about the incident?
No, that was my thought straight away. It was,
Wow.
I've just got to crack on. And it was almost like mind over matter. I think I'm quite proud of how I kind of mentally dealt with the injury. Whether it's right or wrong to do it this way or not, how I was able to cope with it was to actually not acknowledge the severity of it, probably, and just think, I'll do what the doctors are saying. My consultant was awesome, and my physios and all the team that I had around me. And the strict advice that I had was to rest for 6 weeks, as in you want to lay horizontal for 6 weeks, and don't move. So it's tough for an athlete to hear that. You always want to be doing something that you feel is productive to move forwards towards your end goal, which is going to be getting fit again. But to do nothing was tough. But I made it my job to do nothing. I had to make sure that my sleep was good. I was getting a brilliant amount of hours sleep, because your body works in overtime to repair, even though you're not physically doing something. Just your body working in the background to fix those breaks was grueling on my body. So sleeping well, being fed well, thankfully I was up in my parents' house, and they looked after me, fed me some proper northern grub, and just, I suppose, really make the most of the support network that I had around me at that time. And once those first 6 weeks were done, then it moved on to kind of rehab, which was painful a lot of the time, but I felt so good to actually be able to do something. Like, my mind felt so I was excited for the next stage of recovery, which was physical recovery. And we went from strength to strength with that, and consultant was happy, the scans were looking good, but it was a case of don't overdo it, obviously. And then I was able to remove the brace mid-February. So did it at the end of October, removed the brace mid-February.
And then how's that been in terms of easing yourself back into the physical pressures? I mean, I guess a good example might be a footballer getting fit on the training fields, but actually simulating match play and demands. on the pitch is going to be completely different, and will wake up muscles that will be, that won't get that same level of intensity. How did you kind of progress from thinking, okay, there's a severe neck injury here, through to back to racing?
Well, I just did it all in Miami at the first round. I didn't
Okay.
I didn't have time nor the money to have the luxury of doing a lot of testing. I was able to do a test in a Formula 3 car, which was a necessity set by W Series to, give them confidence that I was fit enough to drive in their race cars again for the year. So a friend of mine very kindly set up a GoFundMe site when the injury happened, and so many awesome people donated to kind of help fund my recovery. And if any of them are listening, I just want to say a huge thank you, because actually, they covered my rent, they covered all of my scans, they covered my physio, my training, and actually they were able to cover the tester that I had to do, that actually was able to get me the drive back in W Series. So yeah, that one drive was at Snetterton in the UK. It's probably the toughest track for single seaters and cars with aero, physically, for a driver to drive on. And I did it in a GB3 car, which is now probably one of the most physical F3 cars as well. So at the end of that day, I'm not ashamed to say I was very sore, and I slept a lot. And I ate junk food afterwards, because I was like, I need to treat myself here. I'm having a McDonald's on the way home. But it did the job. I made it through the day and I loved it. It was so good to get back in car. And then, yeah, the stuff in the gym is great for trying to build that level of strength, but you're never being race fit is the best way. And Miami was a shock to the system, which I knew it would be. We had a test session, a quali, and then we had 2 races. So, it was a bit of a meaty weekend, and couple that with the heat out there was pretty hardcore. But when I eventually got to Barcelona a couple of weeks later, already I feel like my fitness and endurance has improved from then. So we're well on the way, but yeah, a little bit more work to do.
Yeah, amazing. So let's just recap that then. Northern Grub for the recovery process, and McDonald's as the reward.
Yep,
After
that's
racing.
it.
Okay.
Tea and
Right.
biscuits.
Tea
Yeah.
tea and biscuits. Okay, tea and
York,
biscuits as
it has to be
recovery.
York
Yeah, okay. Rich tea, what are we talking about? What biscuit are we going for optimum racing performance?
caramel digestives.
Oh,
So
very
it's like a
specific.
non-digestive with a layer of caramel in it. You are
Yeah,
going to
okay.
have just transformed your life.
That's the sort of biscuit that only stock on a special at the local co-op, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think they're called VIP biscuits, to be fair. They're
VIP. Wow. Okay. So put that into your recovery plans, everyone. If I sort of zoom out a little bit, what are your experiences as a woman in a male-dominated event? What's your reading of the landscape at the moment, and where does the sport need to go for in your thoughts?
I think time's definitely changing, and I think that's not just exclusively in motorsport. I think it's sports across the board. I think kind of really there's a nice push with females and women's sport now, which is fab. And I think motorsport is really embracing that. And I think there's a bit of a testament to W Series, which is a female only single seater championship. Yes, I don't think the way to go is to have male motorsport and female motorsport. I don't think that's what it should be, but I think W Series needs to be praised for actually raising the issue of funding for females in motorsport, and giving opportunities to 18 of us to actually drive Formula 3 car at F1 race weekends, and getting that track time. Because actually, without W Series, my last full year of racing was 2016. So, and over my 21-year period, I've actually only ever had 5 full years of competing. So it is tough. It's not just tough for females. It's tough for everyone. Guys and girls alike. But I think there just seems to be a little bit of stigma still attached to females in motorsport, which it's definitely going in the right direction. And I'd like to think that I've kind of maybe helped that journey a little bit through my career. But I think, yeah, there's still a little bit of work to be done, but you know, we're going in the right direction.
And what's your thoughts then if you hint to the fact that having separate series is not the way forward? Are you looking for more women to break through into the full F1 that's dominated by male racers?
Yeah, I think it will happen. You know, I think there is so much motorsport out there. It's not just Formula One, and I think probably, you know, the normal average guy or girl on the street probably doesn't actually realise the extent of what motorsport championships are available, and everyone, and the media included, are probably quite you know, fixated and excited about trying to get a female into F1. I think it will happen. Definitely it's going to happen. I think probably not in the near future, maybe kind of 5 to 7 years, something like that, for like a full-time female F1 driver that's, you know, good. I think there'll be opportunities for females to do free practice sessions and so on in the next, you know, year, 2 years, 3 years, something like that. But I think it's changing already. You know, you see when you go back to karting championships that actually there's loads of girls involved in each championship now, and you go to tracks, there's, you know, female mechanics, there's female engineers, data coaches, drivers, marshals. You know, everyone is really welcoming females on board, and I think that's great because, you know, motorsport is one big family. You know, we're all like-minded people. We all get a buzz out of cars in one way or another, and we should all embrace everyone, whoever they are, wherever they've come from, whatever their background is. You know, everyone should be welcomed into the sport.
And so, what do you think it will take? Is that an investment? Is that some talent ID programs? What are the sorts of things that need to happen to allow that sort of penetration into? Well, maybe it's a bit of a Roger Bannister. Once there's one, then a few will follow.
Yeah, I think it's probably a case of that. You know, the CEO of W Series, Catherine, she says this quote, you know, if you can see it, you can be it. And I think probably, you know, those that are kind of creeping into those roles that are probably high profile roles, I think they will have a huge effect. But I do think that there definitely needs to be, you know, more investment, which again, it is happening. It is starting to happen now. So I think actually we're not seeing the benefits fully yet. I think they will be, you know, a few years down the line to see the benefit of those. You know, for example, obviously W Series, the FIA Women in Motorsport movement, got the Iron Links program, which is, you know, a GT based program with a team called the Iron Dames, which are female drivers there. And you know, there is a big initiative in all kind of forms of motorsport really for trying to encourage females into it. And you know, I think Rome wasn't built in a day. You know, if you try and do it all at once, you know, I think it's just, motorsport has been this way for a long time. So I think you just need to chip at it, and you know, not try and ask too much too early.
Yeah. Okay. And so, what's next? You've got back into a car. You've thrown yourself into it. You've recovered from this incident. What's next for you? What's the next sort of landmark for you?
You know, I'm not done with racing just yet. There's still a bit of work for me physically, to get back to even where I was last year. I think I've definitely got my head around driving a single seater a lot more than last year. Last year was my first ever time in a single seater. So I've learned the ropes a little bit last year, and you know, I just want to put it on to practice this year. But my body's just got to catch up yet. You know, I've had a very different off season to everyone else. You know, everyone else has been in cars testing, you know, not everyone, but a few of them, you know, 15, 20 days of testing over the off season, whereas I've done, you know, not a lot in terms of physical side of things. But you know, we'll get there. And I knew coming into the season that the first half was going to be like this, and it was the second half that I'm really looking for, you know, some decent finishes like I started to get towards the end of last year. And you know, you've got to pace yourself and look at actually where you've come from and the progression that I've made. Otherwise it's very easy to get frustrated as a driver, as a, you know, someone that, you know, wins things and, you know, is competitive. I don't like finishing mid grids, never mind, you know, at the back of the grids, as I've done, you know, at the last round. So progress to be made, but yeah, I'm not giving up just yet.
No, I love that. So that's a nice pragmatic kind of view of I'm hungry, but I also recognise the achievements and the journey that you've gone on, that actually showing, yeah, you've made a lot of progress recently.
It's hard to see
Fascinating.
that. Don't get me wrong. I have to be
Yeah.
reminded of it a lot. You know, I'm not ashamed to say at Barcelona at the weekend, you know, I was just in a right state, you know, thinking what I'm putting all this effort in, and actually, you know, I'm not really getting any reward from it yet. You know, I've got to have a bit of luck on my side at some point. You know, the first round I was in 6th place, which I was thinking like, this is a brilliant start to the season, and then I got hit off the track. And then at Barcelona in qualifying, my car broke, so I ended up starting last in the race. So it'll come. And actually, a really nice quote that someone actually told me at the weekend was, your past is your lesson, your present is your gift, and your future is your motivation. So that kind of resonated with me, and yeah, gave me a bit of perspective on things again, which you do need at times.
Well, power to you, literally, Abbie. But I'm hearing psychologist, I'm hearing uh, physiologist, trainer, I'm hearing mechanic, I'm hearing data scientist, I'm hearing maybe not nutritionist actually, but everything else I can hear.
Diet.
You're spinning so many plates and and doing amazing things. So it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me.